In a bustling city where ambition and success were the currencies of respect, lived a man named Ethan. He wasn't born into wealth, nor did he possess the charm that opened doors effortlessly. Instead, Ethan carried the weight of humility and an unwavering spirit. Ethan's life took an unexpected turn when he married into the affluent family of the Montgomerys. His wife, Isabella, was a formidable businesswoman, known for her sharp mind and unyielding demeanor. To the world, Ethan was the fortunate son-in-law who had secured a life of comfort. But behind the grand facade of the Montgomery estate, his reality was starkly different. From the very beginning, Ethan was treated as an outsider. Isabella's mother, Margaret, never missed an opportunity to remind him of his place. "Ethan, fetch me my tea," she'd command, her tone laced with disdain. "You're not here to relax, you're here to serve." Isabella, too, was cold and distant. She often belittled Ethan, questioning his worth and mocking his aspirations. "You're just a charity case," she'd sneer. "Don't forget that." Despite the constant humiliation, Ethan remained composed. He took on every chore, from cleaning the vast hallways to tending the garden, without complaint. Each task was met with diligence, not because he was resigned to his fate, but because he believed in the dignity of labor and the power of perseverance. Ethan's days were long and filled with menial tasks, but his nights were reserved for dreams. In the quiet solitude of his modest room, he immersed himself in books about entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership. He scribbled ideas into a worn-out notebook, each page a testament to his vision of a better future. One evening, as he was organizing the library, Ethan stumbled upon an old, dusty book about sustainable farming. An idea sparked. He envisioned a venture that combined technology with agriculture, aiming to provide organic produce to urban areas. The concept was ambitious, but Ethan's conviction was stronger. He began to work on his idea during the early hours of the morning, sacrificing sleep and comfort. He reached out to local farmers, learned about their challenges, and brainstormed solutions. Slowly, he built a network and developed a business model that was both innovative and socially impactful. However, his efforts were met with skepticism at home. When Isabella discovered his plans, she laughed derisively. "You think you can change the world with your little project? Stick to cleaning floors, Ethan." Margaret was even harsher. "This is why we never should have let you into our family. You're chasing fantasies while living off our generosity." The ridicule was relentless, but Ethan's resolve was unshaken. He secured a small loan from a community development fund and launched his startup, Green Horizons. The initial days were challenging, with logistical issues and financial constraints. Yet Ethan pressed on, driven by his passion and the desire to prove his worth. Word of his venture began to spread. Local markets started stocking his produce, and customers appreciated the quality and the story behind it. Investors took notice, and soon green horizons expanded beyond the city, partnering with farmers across the region. Ethan's transformation was remarkable. From a ridiculed son-in-law, he became a respected entrepreneur, invited to speak at conferences, and featured in business journals. Yet he remained humble, attributing his success to the lessons learned during his days of hardship. Back at the Montgomery estate, the atmosphere shifted. Isabella and Margaret watched in disbelief as Ethan's reputation soared. The man they once scorned was now celebrated, his name synonymous with innovation and integrity. One day, Ethan returned to the estate, not out of obligation, but to extend an olive branch. He invited Isabella and Margaret to visit the Green Horizons headquarters, hoping to bridge the chasm that had long divided them. As they toured the facility, witnessing the impact of Ethan's work, a sense of remorse washed over them. Isabella, moved by the realization of her misjudgment, approached Ethan with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was wrong about you." Ethan smiled gently. It's never too late to start anew. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that resilience, humility, and unwavering belief in oneself can defy expectations and transform lives. Ethan's journey from a marginalized son-in-law to a visionary leader exemplifies the triumph of the human spirit. The days following Ethan's triumphant emergence as a respected entrepreneur marked the beginning of a quiet transformation, not only in his external world, but within the hearts of those who had once dismissed him. Isabella, now confronted with the truth of Ethan's growth, found herself haunted by guilt. Every time she closed her eyes, memories of her cold words echoed in her mind like an unanswered call for compassion. The opulence she once clung to felt hollow now. The marble floors and crystal chandeliers incapable of offering comfort. Margaret, too, grew restless. The pride that once defined her demeanor was replaced by a silence she had never known. She spent her afternoons seated by the window, staring out into the garden Ethan once tended. The flowers bloomed defiantly, just as Ethan had, nurtured not by kindness, but by his own unbreakable will. One evening, Isabella found herself walking through the halls of Green Horizons, invited by Ethan not with triumph, but with grace. She was guided through labs where sustainable techniques were being tested, through offices where young minds buzzed with ideas, and into greenhouses where produce flourished under natural light. The sight was humbling. This wasn't a company built on inherited privilege. It was forged from pain, faith, and relentless perseverance, and it bore Ethan's fingerprint in every detail. In a quiet moment by the greenhouse, Isabella spoke. "I used to think love meant control, that power could demand respect. But you taught me something I never understood before. Real power is found in patience and quiet effort." Ethan listened, his heart beating with a mix of grief and grace. "We all break sometimes," he said, But healing begins when we learn to forgive ourselves and then each other. But healing was never linear. At home, Margaret had begun to unravel in ways no one expected. The matriarch who once ruled her home like a queen now found herself fumbling with remorse. One morning, as she prepared tea for the first time in years, her hands trembled. She spilled it, hot and sharp, over the kitchen counter. When Isabella rushed in to help, Margaret simply said, "He deserved more than our scorn, and I don't know if I can live with that." "Then let's not ask for forgiveness," Isabella replied. "Let's earn it." Back at Green Horizons, Ethan's success continued to soar. His face graced magazine covers, his voice featured on podcasts. But amidst the accolades, his heart remained tethered to the simple truth. Recognition without love was still an echo in an empty room. One evening, as he returned from a conference, he received a message from Margaret. It was brief. "I've prepared dinner, just us. No servants. Come if you wish." Curious and cautious, Ethan arrived at the Montgomery estate. The grand dining room was dimly lit, the table set simply but beautifully. Margaret stood by the fireplace, her eyes softer than he remembered. As they sat down to eat, she began, "I spent years believing love was something to be earned through obedience, that only the worthy deserved kindness. And in doing so, I failed not only you, but myself." Ethan placed his fork down gently. "You did what you knew, but knowing better now, that matters more than the past." Margaret nodded, tears welling. "Thank you for not turning bitterness into revenge." Their conversation flowed, raw and real. They spoke of Isabella, of regrets, of the ache of lost time. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was the beginning of something better, a bridge over once broken ground. Later that night, Ethan stood alone in the estate's garden. The moon cast its light gently on the path he once walked in silence. And now, that silence carried a different weight, not of rejection, but of peace. Back at her apartment, Isabella stared at a framed photo from her wedding, a day she once despised. Now she saw it with new eyes. In it, Ethan's gaze was gentle, unwavering. She traced his image with her finger, whispering, "I never deserved you, but you deserved everything you've become." She picked up her phone and recorded a message. "Ethan, I don't want to make excuses. I just want you to know that I've changed. And even if you never come back, I'll never stop admiring the man you are. You showed me what love is meant to be." She hit send. It wasn't a plea. It was a tribute. As the chapter of pain began to close, a new one, tender and true, waited to be writ. Time moved forward, not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but with the slow, persistent rhythm of healing. Ethan, though surrounded by acclaim, often found himself returning to simpler moments. The sound of laughter from the gardens at dusk, the quiet hum of the kitchen in the early morning, the scent of jasmine that used to waft through the Montgomery estate in spring. Not because he missed the place, but because these small details held the only genuine traces of the life he had once longed for. He continued building green horizons with a quiet sense of purpose. It wasn't just about sustainability or profit. It was about giving people like him, dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, a chance to rise. One afternoon, as he walked through a new facility in a rural town, a young intern approached him. "Nervous," she said. "Sir, I just wanted to thank you. I never thought someone from a village like mine could work for a global company, but you believed in people like us." Ethan smiled. "That's all I ever wanted, to prove that where you come from doesn't define where you can go." The words echoed through him. Later that evening, as he reviewed reports in his office, a knock came at the door. He looked up, surprised. It was Isabella. She stood in the doorway, uncertain but resolute. "I asked your assistant to let me through. I hope that's okay." He nodded, rising to greet her. "You're always welcome." She entered slowly, her eyes scanning the space that now reflected Ethan's true identity: confident, calm, refined. Everything she once failed to see. "I needed to see you, not to ask for anything, just to understand who you are now. Or maybe who you always were." Ethan gestured to a seat. She sat, and for a while they said nothing. The silence wasn't tense. It was sacred, a space carved out by time and truth. Isabella finally spoke. "I'm working on something new, a foundation. For women who want to start over, for men who feel unseen. It's not much, but I wanted to tell you first, because everything I'm doing now, it's inspired by you." Ethan looked at her, not with bitterness, but with clarity. "That means more than you know." She reached into her bag and pulled out a worn, old envelope. It's from my father. He left it for you before he died. I just found it." Ethan opened it gently. Inside was a simple note, handwritten in shaky lines. "Ethan, I was wrong to force a path on you and Isabella, but I saw in you the kind of heart I always hoped my daughter would one day understand. I pray she sees it before it's too late." Ethan folded the note quietly. His eyes misted, not out of sorrow, but recognition. In those few words, the circle had closed. Weeks passed. Margaret, now older and quieter, had taken to tending the garden herself. She often thought of Ethan, her silent son-in-law, and wondered how someone she once underestimated had become her greatest teacher. On a spring morning, as the sun poured into her living room, Margaret received a letter. It was from Ethan. "Dear Mother, there is nothing more humbling than knowing we're still capable of change at any age. I carry no anger in my heart, only memories and lessons. I've always said, the soil we're given doesn't decide the harvest we grow. I wish you peace and joy in your remaining year. With kindness, Ethan." Margaret clutched the letter to her chest and smiled, a smile full of regret, but also redemption. As for Ethan, he didn't return to the estate. He didn't need to. He had already retrieved what he came for: not status or acknowledgement, but self-worth. One evening, standing by the ocean, watching waves crash and recede, Ethan whispered to the wind, "It's not the world's job to love you. It's yours." Behind him, someone stepped close. It was Isabella. Mind if I stay a while? She asked. He looked at her and nodded. Just stay. No need for words. And they stood there, not as a couple reunited, nor as enemies reconciled, but as two people who had walked through fire and found in its ashes a quiet strength. The past could not be undone, but the future